Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Louis DeSimone. I am the attorney for the fire districts of Albion and Saylesville here in the town of Lincoln. We are presenting this broadcast in order to inform all of the public in the two districts as to a potential merger of the districts and an election which will occur on December 5th, 2020. First of all, the reason that this presentation is being made and streamed to you is because of the COVID pandemic, which you are all aware of. We are prohibited by some of the regulations in the state from having a large gathering of this type of nature to have any type of public meeting. So in lieu of having that public meeting, we would like to advise all of the taxpayers and members of the district as to the specifics of the merger and the consolidation of the two districts. This consolidation has been worked on for several years between both departments. It's a consolidation that both district boards are in favor of, and they've represented at the annual meetings that they are in favor of this merger. To give you a little background, there was some legislation passed in 2019 from the General Assembly which allowed the districts to consider this merger and consolidation. That merger and consolidation is subject to an election by the taxpayers and members of the districts of Saylesville and Albion. So each district will have an election to approve the merger. If there's not an approval from both districts, the merger can't go through. That's a part of the legislation. That was a requirement of the General Assembly. So in this presentation, you'll hear from Chief Andrews of Albion, you'll hear from Chief Fisher of Saylesville, you'll hear from Robert Savetti, who is the accountant and auditor for each of the districts. So he will provide the financial information. The operation and administrative information will be provided to you by each of the chiefs. There will be an opportunity for questions to be submitted online. You'll receive those instructions with a newspaper ad, and there will also be postcard notice for each of the elections that will be held. The elections will be held on the same day. They'll be held separately, and you'll be noticed in accordance with the applicable charters of each district. At this point, I would then turn the matter over to one of the chiefs, and we can go forward from there.
Hi, my name is Robert Fisher. I'm the chief of the Saylesville Fire District. I'd like to thank you for visiting the website and reviewing our presentation for a potential consolidated district. The first thing I'd like to speak about is the history of the Saylesville Fire District. The Saylesville Fire District came about through the Saylesville finishing plants in the early 1800s. As the finishing plant grew, they incorporated a fire department within the mill to protect their investments. As the community grew around the mill, the finishing plant moved the fire department outside of the mill area to presently where it is today in Saylesville at the corner of Chapel and Walker Street. In 1930, the fire district was chartered through the General Assembly. Since then, the department has steadily grown to provide service to the area residents. In 1952, the first full-time fire chief was hired for the fire district. Since then, the department has steadily grown over the years. The next significant hiring was in 1961, where they hired an additional full-time firefighter, and then again in 1973, an additional full-time firefighter was hired. The department ran as a combination volunteer and paid department. Since then, up until the 1980s. In the 80s, additional firefighters were hired on a per diem basis, and they worked weekends. As the amount of fire calls or emergency service calls increased, the number of responses from our volunteer sector started to decrease, and that has steadily grown up to today. In the late 1990s, the Saylesville Fire District consolidated with the Fairlawn-Lincoln Fire District. The Fairlawn-Lincoln Fire District was a smaller district than the Saylesville District, and they weren't able to financially afford to put on any full-time personnel. During the daytime, the Saylesville Fire District answered emergency service calls within their district for them. So in the late 90s, the two boards came together and worked out a plan to consolidate the two fire districts. At that time, the two districts were approved by the taxpayers of both districts, and the new Saylesville Fire District came about. A larger district of Saylesville came about. At that point, the physical station needed to be increased. The station was, a large section of the station was torn down. A new section of the station was built. And the station at that time housed the Fairlawn apparatus and the Saylesville apparatus. Currently, we have two engines, a ladder and a utility vehicle. One engine is a reserve engine. And currently we have a staff of 6 full-time firefighters, which includes the chief, 17 per diem firefighters, and approximately 4 volunteer firefighters.
Good evening, everyone. My name's Chief Andrews from the Albion Fire Department. Briefly, I'm just going to review the history of the Albion Fire Department as Chief Fisher did with Saylesville. So basically, the fire departments started back when the mills were running, and it was they were developed for protect their investments. They had the mills, and they also built some housing for the people that work for them. And then in the 1930s, the general public of the area in Albion decided they wanted to start their own fire department, and they did in the late 30s. Then in 1941, they decided to incorporate through the General Assembly, which provided them with taxing ability to tax the people to run the fire department. The fire departments back then were strictly volunteer until the early, right around 1970, they hired their first full-time chief. And then in the late 70s, they hired a second firefighter. That went that way till probably about 1990, when they hired, in the 1990s, when they hired 3 firefighters. Still operating during the day with 3 firefighters, with firefighters supplemented by volunteers. The reason that they had the increase in their force at this time was the 116 corridor was being developed with a lot of buildings, and they had to have daytime coverage when the volunteers were not available. As the years progressed, if you read in the different journals that we have, the volunteers are kind of dwindling, unfortunately, because they provided a great service. So we have to prepare ourselves for the next step. So we did. We went to per diem firefighters. So the way it's set up now in Albion, we have 6 full-time firefighters, 19 per diem. We have a full-time firefighter on a shift working with 2 per diem firefighters. So we have coverage for 24/7. So basically, this is how the fire department operate right now.
So on the next slide, how did the consolidation come about? So we talked about the history. So this next chapter that we're moving into, in 2009, the Albion, Saylesville, and Lonsdale Fire District fire chiefs got together, and also a board member for each district got together to discuss whether it would be advantageous for the 3 fire districts to consolidate. After approximately 2 years' worth of work, the Lonsdale Fire District chose to back out of the consolidation. And that left the Albion and Saylesville Fire District to move forward. We moved forward without the Lonsdale District. We made it to the end of our consolidation efforts, had a meeting, and at that meeting, the two boards got together, looked at the overall proposal for a consolidation at that time, and found that it's not fiscally responsible for either district to move forward based on the tax rate numbers at that time. So that consolidation effort ended. Several years after that effort, the Lonsdale Fire District failed. They failed financially. The Saylesville Fire District started providing fire service to the Lonsdale Fire District during that time. They weren't able to reopen. The Saylesville Fire District continued to provide fire service. Legislation was approved through the General Assembly to incorporate the Lonsdale District into the Saylesville Fire District at that time. We have continued since June of 2015 to present, providing fire service to that district. We have gone through several budget cycles. Once the large district came together between Saylesville and Lonsdale, and we're able to stabilize the tax rate, stabilize our personnel, provide a good service to both districts. Continuing forward, the two fire chiefs got together between Saylesville and Albion and started the discussions once again, should we try consolidation? Two board members from each district got together, and we started a new consolidation effort.
Going into the subcommittees that were assigned for this consolidation, and this goes back to when we were talking with Lonsdale and Saylesville and Albion, we had set up these subcommittees, and we just continued them into this consolidation. And the subcommittees were career personnel and per diem personnel. All departments at that time were operating the same. A charter and bylaws, our apparatus, to review the apparatus and what kind of condition it was in. The apparatus are in fairly good condition, but as the time has gone on, apparatus has been aging. Station evaluation, insurance, and the ISO is all part of one committee. Insurance is not really going to change as far as monetary-wise, because we're coming together, but the firefighters have more exposure, whether they're separate, we're separate entities or combined. It's the same exposure, so there's really no savings in the insurance end of it. And then there was the financial and the budget preparation. And that you have seen with Robert Savetti will give his presentation on what the budget for the new district would look like, and with the current budgets of the districts now as they are their own. Next slide is, why is consolidation a viable option? It enables the fire districts to improve their use of resources, the flexibility of staff on the per diem. Right now, the way we operate, we each have per diem firefighters, but if I need someone to work here and I call Saylesville and nobody wants to come, I can't fill that slot. So this provides us with a little bit more ability to fill slots that are vacant at the time. Larger full-time staff to cover key positions. These key positions are fire marshal plan review, which is a very tedious job, important job. All buildings that are being built, they have to review plans, and they're on the go all the time. And then we have a training officer which is the next position, which is an important position to do training. Training officer has to be a certified training officer. And we have standards that we have to go by under the NFPA. They're not laws, but they're standards. If anything should go wrong, and you have to go, something happens, that's what they review, the standards, and that's what the national goes by. We would have an EMS coordinator, which today EMS is becoming more and more involved in the fire service than ever before, and there's a lot of work to that part, keeping the EMTs up to date, keeping them trained, supplying the trucks, inspecting the trucks, and so forth. Fire prevention and education, this is where we go out into the schools. We've done that for years, where they've gone into the grammar schools, actually started in nursery schools with the kids. And as you progress through the grades and see the kids, how they've progressed over the years, and remember the information that you give them, and they take that home to share with their parents and their siblings. The other thing that we do now on a limited basis is go into businesses and provide fire prevention education. I mean, this is something that we would like to increase if we can. We have some big facilities, especially in Albion, with Amica's corporate headquarters, and we do a lot with them, and we have a lot of other businesses that request our assistance in providing fire education. And then we had maintenance of apparatus in the buildings, which, you know, we have to have people to maintain the apparatus. Not so much that they fix it, but they have to find out what's wrong with it, when the testing dates come up for hose, for pumps, and that type of thing. Also, the thing to note is firefighters assigned to these positions are also able to answer alarms. So we're not providing these positions as just office workers. They're doing a twofold job. They're doing their fire prevention education, they're doing their inspections. If a call comes in and it's a call that they're needed to, they respond to that call as well. By combining these programs, we'll provide one more factor in a more efficient fire department for the consolidated district. Currently, both districts share a tax collector, treasurer, legal counsel, and an auditor. So these were all put together. There is a little bit of savings there, not a lot, but we are sharing them, which makes the progress much easier. So the goal that we want to maintain is 3 firefighters on duty 24/7, using a combination of full-time and per diem firefighters. Cover high demand hours during the week with extra per diem personnel. And when we go through our records, and every year we print out our reports at the end of the year, we've actually had multiple times where we've had more than one alarm at the same time. And, you know, this will help supplement to cover those alarms. The other thing that we did is we started out with 4 chiefs, 2 chiefs, 2 deputy chiefs, and we said through attrition that we would reduce those down to 1 chief and 1 deputy. So far, we've had 1 retirement of 1 chief, where we've now reduced it down to 3. And probably in 3 years, that'll be down to the 2 that we have talked about before. And we want to eliminate duplication of equipment. We're not going to say we're going to eliminate what equipment right now. One of the biggest mistakes they make in consolidation is eliminating equipment prior to the consolidation. This way, we're going to look at what we need, what we think we need, and we'll wait a little bit and examine that again and see where we can eliminate some equipment. We want to standardize recruitment and the hiring practices. Everybody now, both districts have their own set of applications of what they have their application for the people to fill out. Then they have their hiring practices, and those can differ. Sometimes they don't differ by much, but they should all be standardized. Firefighter safety, which is the most important, we'll have 1 set of SOPs, 1 set of rules and regulations, 3 firefighters per truck. really with less than 3 firefighters, we can't do our job properly. And we'll have a better training program for our firefighters to train them in. New construction in the Albion district. We have a new hotel with 103 rooms that's just been built and scheduled to open within probably this week of the end of October. We have new condos that are proposed. They're in the process of developing that land. There's 24 units that's going to be put in. And we have a small housing development that has been put in, probably 10 or 11 houses.
Currently, within the Saylesville Fire District, there are several construction projects going on. These construction projects we're anticipating are going to bring us some significant additional tax revenue, as well as an increase in call volume to these individual developments. The first development, which is close to completion, is at 90 Industrial Circle. It's 45 units, apartment units. That's scheduled for construction to be completed on November 1st of this year. The second significant project we have is actually right opposite the Saylesville Fire Station at 40 Walker Street. The developer has proposed 140 units, apartment units, to go within that structure. And then we have a small housing development of approximately 13 houses that is proposed. With these three developments, we are anticipating increased tax revenue as well as increased call volume.
So those are some of the reasons why we need to consolidate the districts and make it one. So at this time, I'd like to thank everybody for reviewing this program.
Hi, my name's Robert Savetti. I'm the CPA for Saylesville and Albion Fire Districts. I'm here to do a quick presentation on the proposed consolidation merger of the two districts effective fiscal year 2022. The first portion of the presentation, we just want to show the current budgets or the operating budgets of the two fire districts for fiscal 2021. The Albion Fire District budget was approved on October 13, 2020 in the amount of $1,306,000. This budget represented approximately $41,000 increase in the operating budget from the previous fiscal year, or 3.27%. The tax rates which were approved are as follows. Residential tax rate, $1.43 per thousand. Commercial rate, $1.92 per thousand. Tangible rate, $3 per thousand. And motor vehicle is at $1.10, which is a frozen tax rate in accordance with state law. The Saylesville Fire District operates on a calendar year. So at this time, the budget for Saylesville Fire District fiscal 2021 has not been prepared or has not been approved by the board as well as the taxpayers. But at this point, the projected operating budget for fiscal 2021 of the Saylesville Fire District is at $1,397,483. This represents an increase of approximately $48,000 from the 2021 operating budget, 2020 operating budget, or 3.59%. The tax rates that are projected to be as follows for 2021 in Saylesville: residential, $1.42 per thousand; commercial, $1.96 per thousand; tangible, $3.15 per thousand; and the motor vehicle is frozen at $2.50. So the reason we present those two budgets at this time is to show where the fire districts are for the current fiscal year, or fiscal 2021, which would be starting at Saylesville in January. The proposed operating budget for the Lincoln Fire District, which would be the name of the merged fire district, the district would operate with a fiscal year ended October 31st. So the budget which we're about to look at is for the period November 1st, 2021 to October 31st, 2022. The consolidation would become effective, as mentioned, November 1st, 2021. And the budget for fiscal 2022 would be presented for approval to the taxpayers at the October annual meeting. At that time, the tax rates would also be established by the taxpayers with the approval of the budget. The fiscal 2022 budget would be based on the assessed valuations as presented in the 2020 tax roll provided by the town of Lincoln, which uses an assessment date of December 31st, 2020. On this screen, you see the proposed budget for fiscal 2022 for the Lincoln Fire District. As you can see in the budget, the total proposed budget for fiscal 2022 is $2,735,894. This represents an approximately $32,000 increase from the combined budgets that are already adopted for the Albion Fire District and that projected for the Saylesville Fire District for their fiscal 2021. So that increase in the consolidated budget, proposed budget, is 1.21%. Now keep in mind there are various estimates and assumptions that are used in developing this projected budget, because where we are today, October 28, 2021, versus what's going to actually be in place and the tax valuations, et cetera, next October. So the next couple slides, we just have some of the assumptions or estimates that are used in the projected operating budget. The first, salaries and fringe benefits, are based upon the proposed union contract between the district and Local 3023, International Association of Firefighters. That contract has not been entered into yet. Until the consolidation is approved, then that contract would move forward. But based on preliminary information in the contract, those figures have been recorded in this proposed budget. There's two pension obligations that the district currently has. There are some firefighters that are under the town of Lincoln's pension plan, and there are some firefighters that are under the MERS or the state of Rhode Island's retirement plan. Both pension plans would continue to exist in the consolidated district. So one estimate that was utilized is the district in the proposed budget utilized the Albion Fire District pension rate as provided by the Employee Retirement System of Rhode Island for fiscal 2022. It should be noted that any newly hired fire personnel would participate in the MERS plan, so the state retirement plan. Health insurance is another significant expenditure in this budget. The health insurance is based on anticipated increases based on past experience with the district and what the district has seen with the health insurance rates. It should also be noted that in the budget, the list of expenditures, you can see a budgeted line item for $34,000 that is going into a capital projects fund for future capital acquisitions. One item to mention, when we looked at the budget for Saylesville a moment ago, the fiscal 2021 budget, it should be noted that that budget presentation is for an entire fiscal year, so 12-month period. However, the taxpayers in Saylesville, if this consolidation is approved, would only pay a prorated share of that assessment. So their tax bill for fiscal 2021 in Saylesville would only be 10 months or approximately 83% of the annual assessment. Some of the other assumptions here on slide 7 are the projected tax rates. So the projected tax rates in the consolidated district, you have the residential, we'd be utilizing the 2020 tax roll with an assessment date of 12/31/2019. Because we don't know the current valuations or what the valuations will be at the end of 20, we use these assessment dates in the prior roll to determine an estimate for the taxes. The commercial, we utilize the 2020 tax roll with an assessment date of 12/31/19. Plus, we estimate an increase in that valuation of approximately $5 million for new business development based on knowledge of what's forming within the districts. The tangible assessment utilized to determine the tax rate was again the 12/31/2019, which is the most recent available. Whereas for motor vehicles, we had to utilize the 2019 tax roll, which is an assessment date of 12/31/2018, because as of this date, the valuation as of 12/31/19 as well as 12/31/20 is not currently available. So based on those assumptions, on slide 8, we have the applicable tax rates. So if this consolidation were to occur and the approved budget were to be presented as currently projected, the residential tax rate's projected to be $1.46 per thousand of assessed valuation. This represents a 3-cent increase in Albion and a 4-cent increase in Saylesville based on the projected tax rates of 2021. The commercial tax rate's projected to increase to $1.98, which is a 6.5-cent increase in Albion and a 2.5-cent increase in Saylesville. The tangible tax rate is projected to be $3.15 per thousand, and the motor vehicle tax rate is projected to be a $2 rate per thousand. Now keep in mind, I mentioned earlier that the tax rate for motor vehicle is frozen. So in Albion, it was frozen at $1.10. In Saylesville, it was frozen at $2.50. However, in communications with folks at the state, because if we're one district, we cannot have two different tax rates. We had to determine a tax rate that would enable the district to generate the same amount of tax revenue for motor vehicles as they have in the past. We can't exceed that, which is why we ended up with a motor vehicle tax rate of $2 per thousand. However, when we look at some of the situations for the tax rate, keep in mind that although Albion is seeing an increase in that motor vehicle rate, there will be a phase out of the motor vehicle taxes based on current state law. So that would be a temporary increase that, again, based on current state law, we would see that motor vehicle tax phase out over a period of time. So on page 9, we provided a couple scenarios that shows, based on projected and the actual tax rate for, the actual tax rate for Albion and projected for Saylesville for 2021, what the taxes are projected to be versus what they would be under the new consolidated district. So the first item we have is a valuation with the personal residence valued at $250,000 and a valuation of motor vehicles at $20,000. Under the 2020 tax roll or fiscal 2021 rates applicable to Albion and Saylesville, Albion's tax would be approximately $380 and Saylesville would be approximately $405. You could see just beneath that, under the proposed merger, the fiscal 2022 taxes for Albion would be $405. For Saylesville, of course, the $405, both with the same rates, which there would be an estimated increase in the Albion Fire District tax of $25.50 for the fiscal year. The second scenario we have is a personal residence valued at $350,000, motor vehicles at $20,000, and you can see the Albion Fire District taxes for 2021 are $522.50, and for Saylesville projected to be $547. Under the consolidated district, the taxes for fiscal 2022 would be $551, which is an estimated increase in Albion of $28.50 and an increase in Saylesville of $4. And the last comparison we have is a personal residence valued at $500,000 with motor vehicles valued at $20,000, where in Albion the 2021 taxes would be $737, and Saylesville projected 2021 taxes of $760, and the projected taxes based on the consolidated 2022 fiscal year would be $770. So in Albion, you would see an increase of $33 per year, and Saylesville, an increase of $10 per year. Again, keep in mind the increases there represent the fiscal 2021 tax rates. So if this consolidation does happen, you have the projected tax rates. If the consolidation is not approved by the taxpayers, you would still have an increase in the taxes in each district. And we have that information on the following slide where if the consolidation did not occur and the fiscal 2021 budgets increases were projected to occur for fiscal 2021 in each district, so based on past experience, the Albion's tax rate for fiscal 2022 would be, for residential property, would be $1.48 per thousand, and in Saylesville, it would be $1.47 per thousand. So you can see with those two, that situation, the tax rate is actually higher than we're showing in the projected consolidated budget for 2022. And the same holds true for commercial rates. In the projected budget for the consolidated entity or consolidated district, we have it at $1.98.5, whereas in Albion, it would increase to $1.99 if left as a standalone district, and in Saylesville, $2.03 if left as a standalone district in fiscal 2022. So overall, you have the consolidated budget when you look at it in comparison to the current existing budget for Albion as well as the projected budget for Saylesville for 2021. It's a 1.2% increase, whereas in the past, or at least the past year, we saw Albion with an increase of 3.27% and Saylesville at 3.59%. So through consolidation, although you're not seeing an immediate savings in the taxes, long-term, you should see savings for a couple of reasons. You'll see savings due to the phase-out of the motor vehicle taxes, but then more importantly, you're going to see savings through the efforts of consolidation where you're able to stabilize the tax rates because you have a larger tax base on which to generate the revenue from. A couple additional comments on the last couple of slides. If the consolidation is approved at the annual tax meeting, the taxpayers would also be asked to vote on some resolutions. These resolutions would be presented to the taxpayers just to strengthen up the financial reporting and also develop some new funds for the future of the district. So the first resolution that we would anticipate or propose for approval after the consolidation is approved would be establishment of a capital projects fund. The capital projects fund would be set up to accumulate reserves for future capital acquisitions. This fund would be supported through an annual appropriation. As we showed in the consolidated budget, we have an appropriation line item for $34,000. So each year there would be an appropriation line item to transfer money into the capital projects fund. And in addition to that, any excess funds or surpluses that are accumulated would be transferred to capital projects fund as long as they exceed the second bullet which we have here. So the second resolution is adopting a formal fund balance policy in accordance with Governmental Accounting Standards Board, Statement 54. The recommendation would be that you maintain a fund balance reserve of non-spendable and unassigned equal to 20% of the subsequent year's budget. By maintaining that reserve, you have a contingency fund within your general fund in the event emergencies happen. We all know the cost of fire apparatus continues to climb, and repairing that apparatus is quite expensive. The third resolution we would look to is approval of a committed fund balance that would be set aside for future obligations related to compensated absences. So you have employees that accumulate vacation and sick time throughout their tenure in the district, and if that sick time or vacation time based on contract is required to be paid out upon termination, if you don't have available funds within the budget, you could have a reserve fund set aside where those funds could be paid out of. So again, it's funding an obligation in the now for something that may happen in the future. And the last resolution would be the establishment of a trust fund. So in accordance with employment contracts, the district may have an obligation to pay future benefits, health insurance benefits for employees after retirement. So establishing a trust fund would allow you to put funds aside for investment purposes so that in the future, those obligations would be fully funded. So we would look to see upon consolidation what the fund balance has been accumulated in the district, and then have the voters approve to set aside a certain amount each at that point in time. And then on an annual basis, if there's any savings in the healthcare line item, so if you budget $200,000 and it only costs you $150,000, that extra $50,000 would also be allocated to the OPEB trust fund. Last few comments, if the consolidation is approved, again, just reiterating that the 2021 budget, which would be approved by the Saylesville Fire District, will only be a 10-month budget. So the taxpayers would not be paying an annual budget, and then once consolidation happens on November 1st of 2021, be hit with another tax bill. It would be a 10-month tax bill, which would take you to the end of existence of the Saylesville Fire District, and then upon merger or consolidation on November 1st, 2021, the tax bill would go out under the Lincoln Fire District. And also mentioning that the tax bill that would go out for the Saylesville Fire District for the 10-month period would be based off of the 2020 tax roll, so assessment date of 12/31/2019. So it would be the same assessment value that the taxpayers are currently receiving their taxes or their tax bill on. It's currently anticipated, and again, would go through approval of the taxpayers at the annual meeting, but with consolidation approval, it's anticipated that the tax bills would be due in 2 equal installments of 50%, as long as the gross tax is in excess of $200. So whereas Albion Fire District, the taxes are currently due in November, December, and in Saylesville, the taxes are due in October, September, October. The new taxes under the consolidated district would not be due until February 28th of 2022, with the second installment or balance due required by May 31st, 2022. And then the last point of information, just because through some of the discussions I know at the annual meetings, as well as some of the prelim discussions with the consolidation talks, there's always concerns on what type of debt obligations, so long-term borrowings, do the two districts have. So on the last exhibit here on page 12, there are 3 note obligations, and these are the balances as of today, so as of October 28, 2020. Albion Fire District has an outstanding loan of $456,336 on the 2015 ladder truck. That obligation is due annually in the amount of $74,311, with last payment due on December 15, 2026. Albion also has a loan on the building. That note is held by the USDA. The principal balance outstanding is $476,041, due approximately $39,000 annually, with final payment due June 28, 2039. And then Saylesville also has a building loan outstanding with the USDA, with the principal balance outstanding of $643,609, due approximately $48,000 annually, with final payment on April 24, 2042.
So I would like to thank everybody for coming to the website, reviewing the information that we presented here today. Very shortly, you'll have the ability to email in questions to our new website. Please keep an eye on the local newspapers that will be advertised in those publications. And we'll get back to you within 48 hours to answer your questions. Thank you.